Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So as promised, I wanted to talk to you guys about peak week because a lot of you have seen me mention peak week. Oh, it's peak week for this show or that show. And some of you don't know what it is. And those of you who do know what it is have a lot of questions about how I run a peak week. So peak week is the 7 days leading up to a bodybuilding competition. So you have a week where basically you manipulate certain factors to try and get your body to peak for the stage, meaning it looks the best that it looks on that stage. And it's a tricky process, but before I talk about what it is, I want to talk about what it isn't. Peak week is not some Hail Mary where you pull out all the stops and just gun it to try and change your physique completely overnight. And what I mean by that is peak week is not a time to just cut all your carbs out and diet super hard, do a ton of cardio. That is almost a guarantee that you're gonna look like trash on stage. So there's that. Also, peak week is not a time to throw a whole bunch of variables you've never played with before at yourself. Let's say you dieted for 20 weeks and then in the final week before the show, you're gonna throw all of these crazy variables that you've never experimented with at your body. That seems a lot like taking a stick and putting it right in the spokes of your bicycle tires while you're riding it, because you have no idea what's gonna happen and you could literally throw an entire prep with a crazy peak week. So that is not what peak week is. If you've been following along my journey, you know that I have kept refeeds and diet breaks in my nutrition protocol since day one of this prep. So I already know what certain carb manipulations are gonna look like on my body. For example, if I eat my lower calorie days Monday through Friday, I look different on Saturday morning after 5 low days than I do on Monday morning after 2 high days. And because I have so much data of what that looks like, we can kind of anticipate what a certain amount of carbs is going to do for my physique. So on the nutrition side of things, peak week generally comes down to carb manipulation. So you want to think about your muscle cells as sort of like empty cups, I guess. Pretend they're empty cups. And you can fill those cups, the cells, up with carbs, water, and salt. And you want the muscle cells, the cups, to be full because that's going to give your muscles the biggest, fullest, hardest look. But you don't want to overfill them because then you have all this carb and water and salt kind of floating around the body with nowhere to go, and it can make you look soft and watery. So if you've ever heard either of those terms, that's what it's referring to. So it does take some experimentation, which is smarter to do earlier in prep, to find out like what's the right amount of carbs for you to look your best, and how long does it take for your body to shuttle those carbs into those cups, into those muscle cells to get the fullest, hardest look. So like I just mentioned, you can fill them with carbs, water, and salt. And they all kind of need each other to get there. So pulling out salt completely, which is a common mistake people make on peak week, or dehydrating is a common mistake people make on peak week, makes it so those cups never really get full. For myself, I keep water high all week long because, as you've probably heard me mention in other videos, what's the best way to clear excess water from the body? Well, it's to drink more water. Again, we want those cups to be full but not overfilled. So by keeping water high all week, I give my body a chance to get used to that much water intake, and I'm, constantly going to the bathroom. Anybody who's ever done a peak week with me knows that's probably the hardest part. You're drinking like 2 gallons sometimes a little bit more than that a day for the better part of a week, so you are just constantly peeing. Salt stays high for the same reason. You don't want to increase your water and decrease your salt. That's a good way to pass out or worse. So that stays pretty high. And then mainly it comes down to the timing of the carbohydrates, like we mentioned before. During this season, I have experimented with carb loading early in the week, carb loading the nights before the show, and then doing kind of 2 carb loads, a medium carb load and then dropping it, and then a higher one closer to the show. And they all have kind of come with different looks. At this point, however, my peak weeks are even more predictable because my overall calories have increased over the last several weeks. So these peak weeks are even gentler than before. But I would say while we were in like the real deep throes of like low calories, the backloading approach, the carb loading close to the show, seemed to give the best, fullest look. And because I know myself and I tend to kind of have those cups overfilled, or the carbs can't find their way into the muscle cells fast enough, it's better for me to come in not quite 100% full than to risk overfilling those cups, for me personally. For other people this will be different, and that's why it's so important that you find a coach that knows your body and is assessing you constantly. Training gets a little bit easier during peak week. It's mostly about keeping the body moving, keeping the blood flowing, and keeping a pump. This is not a time to go in there and hit PRs. Likewise, the cardio tapers down usually over the course of the week, and that's mostly because we don't want the legs to be tired and swollen, because one, swollen legs will hold excess water, and two, flexing your legs on stage is really freaking hard. You want them to be as recovered as possible on stage so that you can squeeze your quads as hard as humanly possible while you are up there. Outside of that, there's a lot of other things that happen during peak week that I'm not going to get into today because they don't have to do with the training and nutrition side of things, but there's a lot of things like skin prep, girly beautification garbage that needs to happen during peak week. If that's something that you ladies especially would like to know about, let me know in the comments down below. I am very not a girly girl, but it is required in these competitions in order to do well. So I've really learned to take my tomboyishness and transform into a beautiful butterfly on show day. So if you guys ever want to learn more about that, it's not really vegan or bodybuilding related, but I would be more than happy to share my tips and tricks with you there because it doesn't come naturally to me. So that's it from me for today. Let me know if you have any questions about peak week, and I will talk to you soon.